The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Yes, hello everyone, and welcome to All You Can Eat. It's the podcast about deliciousness. I'm your host, Rob Rosenthal, coming to you here now with episode number 89 of our podcast. Very excited tonight because we are going to spend the entire time together with someone that I like so very much, someone that I admire, someone who is super talented and smart and fun and a great chef. Tonight, I've had on the show restaurateurs, I've had on authors, I've had on cooks, and as he would tell you, he's all three. His name is Joey Campanaro from South Philly. But made his name and his fame at his restaurant in New York, the Little Owl, on the corner of Bedford and Grove, there in the West Village. It is iconic. It is venerable. The Venerable Little Owl. It's a place that you are thrilled to go to if you're in the neighborhood, and it's also a destination restaurant. And the reason is because of Joey. The food is fantastic. It is the hospitality is genuine and heartfelt and lovely. And Joey has written a cookbook. It's called Big Love Cooking, and I read an advance copy. And I will tell you this: you got to get the book. I don't say that about a lot of cookbooks. I just don't. But there was something about Joey's book which really spoke to me. Not only because I really want to make almost every single recipe that he has in there, but because, it's the voice, it's the tips, it's the way that he addresses the reader. Big Love Cooking coming out this week, and I'm telling you, it's good. Get your hands on it. Let's not waste any more time and get right to the conversation with Joey Campanaro. Joey Campanaro, thank you so much for being here with me today. It is a treat to have a chance to speak with you.
Well, I miss you, buddy, and it's a treat to be with you too.
I miss you as well. So let's start off right from the beginning. Where have I found you? Where are you located right now? I'm
in Greenwich Village at the Little Owl restaurant.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so the first question is, even before I get into kind of like background, where are we in New York City specifically? Where are we at the Little Owl in terms of what you're putting out into the world? What is the situation currently?
The Little Owl's open for lunch and dinner and brunch Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Fantastic, and I suppose that means that people are eating out of doors.
Yes, everything's outdoors. I have roadway seating and cafe seating. I'm on the corner of Bedford and Grove.
Yep.
So the majority of the tables are in the street behind barricades on Bedford Street. And then I have on Grove Street, I have about 4 tables along the side of the building.
Yeah, and has he, as our mayor, given or the governor, whoever's responsible for this, given restaurants any indication as to the next phase? Like, what are you thinking of as we segue into, from warm weather into the next period? What's the expectation?
There was a report on Monday, and he alluded to indoor dining returning sometime in 2021.
Right.
Which is horrible news.
Yeah. How?
There's outrage around the uncertainty of not knowing. And so, we're just doing the best we can, holding on to whatever we can, and paying as we can pay, and maintaining relationships. And the main focus is keeping employees safe,
Yeah.
and our guests safe.
Yeah, it's an unbelievably. I mean, I want to try to keep a positive outlook, but it's a really, really painful. And you know, it hurts me to say this, Joey. I was born in Manhattan. I've been there pretty much 95% of my adult life. So it hurts me to say this, but it is a legitimately, painful time in the city. And particularly for those of us that are interested in food and restaurants, and it's been brutal for the industry. I don't even know really what more to say other than fingers crossed at some point it begins to come back. I see how many people are losing their livelihoods. I see how difficult it is to sustain even a break-even business at this point without having sufficient seating. It's just a sad time, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, it's tricky for everyone. Pivoting at some point doesn't even seem like an option. What we're left with right now is, here's roadway seating, and you can't have roadway seating after October 31st. So that's something has to give with that. Something's got to change. There has to be some balance to it. Otherwise, it's basically every restaurant in the city needs to close.
And can I assume, Joey, that you're offering up a pretty hefty delivery business?
Yes. We're available on some of the third-party apps. But what we also did was build a delivery through our own website, which really saves users a lot of money.
Right.
If they go right to our website, thelittleowlnyc.com, and there's a very simple button to order for either pickup or delivery. One of my partners, Essence Shirley, she's really wonderful. She handles all of the web development and anything digital for the entire company.
Right.
And also social media, and she's really been a trooper through this whole process.
Yeah, that's crucial these days. So let's take the opportunity to repeat it once again for anybody who's tuning in. thelittleowlnyc.com if you want to get some of the most outstanding, delicious food from the iconic Little Owl down on Bedford and Grove. I will tell you before we turn to kind of the Joey Campanaro story that I read your new cookbook already.
You read the book?
Well, when I say that I read the book, I was able to get my hands, on kind of the advanced PR copy. So I went through it. I'm not going to tell you that I read every single word of every single page, but it was enough for me to come across the fact that you knew Richard Eric Weigel and Michael Anastasio, two good friends of mine. That made me happy.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah. And then later we'll talk. Well, so yeah, that's Michael Anastasio I've known since the day that he arrived in New York City, and yeah, so that excited me. But more importantly, I got to tell you this, and this is no bullshit because I'm just not a bullshit guy. I just don't have the time or the patience or the energy. That fucking cookbook is awesome.
Thanks, brother.
I mean, Joey, I know what a pain in the ass it is to write a cookbook because I have done one. And so as I read through it, I thought to myself, this is just unbelievably great because most cookbooks that I look at, I find a couple of things here or there to like. I want to make pretty much every recipe that you have in that book. I liked your attitude because, it was your voice. I liked the hints and the tips. I just thought it was so good. So I congratulate you 1,000-fold for putting that book out there. It's just, I'm excited for it to be in the world. Really great job. Really super great job. Really impressive.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
And is it your, I hate to ask this, but is this your first cookbook or have you done others?
No, this is my first cookbook.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's a lot of work, man, but congratulations. Really great job. So now, let's get to kind of like the origin of this thing. Tell the people about Joey Campanaro growing up in South Philly and the relationship, how you fell in love with food.
Well, there's lots of ways. I mean, I'm the youngest of youngest of four, and grandmother was right next door, and there were no babysitters when I was growing up, so it was all family or work, and so school, family, or work. And I started working very young. I was 12 years old, and my first job was a cleaner. I used to clean a restaurant in Wildwood, New Jersey, and it was just me and the chef, Steve McDonald. The restaurant was called Captain Max, and so he'd make like snapper soup in these huge vats of chowder and in pots so big that I would crawl inside them to clean them. It was kind of crazy.
It's funny.
And also, being watched by my grandmother, my mama, and the projects that we would do were make fresh pasta, and she'd call them homemades, and those were or cavatellis, and it was like that was the thing to keep me busy, was cooking with her or taking a walk to the Italian market and walking around with her and understanding respect at that age was important, because there was a lot of people in the neighborhood that really respected her. And not only was I impressed by that, but I was impressed by the fact that she was a woman who survived the Depression, the oldest of 5 kids,
Mm-hmm.
and took care of her sick mother at the same time. And she did this with the only thing that I could express is big love. I mean, she loved to cook, and she embraced it. And she would give me little tips and tricks about thinking about what you're cooking, not just cooking it. And so when you think about it and you do things to the dishes, they become yours. You're inspired by different things in your life. One story, and it's a part of the success of my entire business, was that the sausage store on Christian Street, Fiorella's, was closed one day, and she wanted to make a pot of Sunday gravy. And she didn't know what to do because she wanted that sausage flavor in her gravy because that was what made it hers. And she thought about it, and she said, you know what? When I'm frying the onions and the garlic, how about if I just put some fennel seeds in there? Because the sausage wasn't going to be in there because Fiorella's was closed.
Mm-hmm.
And we did this together, and I was like, she made a move on her feet in the moment, and it's something that identifies the flavor of her gravy.
Yeah.
And so when I became a professional chef and I wanted to share something of my childhood, it was how she made meatballs and how the fennel changed the flavor profile of this pot of gravy. I did the same thing, and then it became wildly popular dish, and that's something that I got from paying attention to a woman that would think about what she was cooking because she was cooking for the people that she loves, right?
Yeah, and hence the name of the cookbook, which is a big love cooking.
Yes, big love.
Yeah, I think I didn't. And by the way, when you ask, did I read the book? I'll have you know that I don't. Like I said, I don't bullshit. The reason that you went for that first job is because you said to your father you wanted something. I believe it was like a boat or something like that, and he said, "Go to work, get a job." So, so I mean, I did read, and I think what you've reminded me of with the fennel seed story, Joey, is that I think one of the things I was responding to in the book is that I'm all about most taste, fewest ingredient. Yeah, I'm all about most taste. You know what I mean. There was something about like the way that you use flavors, that's very attractive to me. There's something about, like, I don't know. I get when I see recipe. I don't, I look at recipes for inspiration, not because I want to copy the exact, kind of formula. And so many of them are complicated and convoluted. I like, I think there's something about about Italian cooking, about the aesthetic of it, which really focuses on getting the best ingredients you can and kind of maximizing the flavor of them. So I really responded to so much of what you had on the as far as your recipes go, but also even early on, kind of the ingredients you want to have in the pantry, how you want to use your hands. I just thought you did a really smart, super job in there. So you grew up eating some of the great Italian American classics, from your Sunday gravy to your, I guess that would include those famous meatballs of yours.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, at some point, I guess before, so you opened the Little Owl in 2006, right there in that location. A location which, what's his name? That great food guy who wrote your,
Calvin Trillin.
yeah, Calvin Trillin, who lives right over there. Apparently, he's one of those locations that had a history of unsuccessful restaurants in it, and then there you came along and opened it. What's the thing that made the difference? I mean, because what you've proven here is that it's not so much a location issue; it's really a concept issue or a delivery issue. What was the thing that made the difference, do you think, in your place?
Well, just like we started this conversation, you said you're a no bullshit kind of guy. This is a no bullshit kind of restaurant.
Right.
There are expectations that people have when they go out to eat. I mean, I go out to eat. Well, I used to anyway, and I would enter any sort of establishment with the level of expectation, because you're paying for an experience. Like, we know how much food costs, and so the experience here was just really no bullshit. It's genuine. It was genuine hospitality. Mm-hmm. They say in certain levels, like you clear from the right or serve from the left, or maybe it's backwards. I don't know. We do what we have to do because necessity is the mother of invention in the small space that we opened up in. The dining room's 350 square feet, mm-hmm. and the kitchen's 150 square feet, so it's 500 square feet.
Right.
And I thought that the book was going to be called 10 pounds of flour in a 5-pound bag, because that's really what's going on at this restaurant. It's so small, and so the things that we do can't overreach, right? We have real limits. And so within those limits, we're actually able to find out how to give people what they want. And it was just be nice, be real, and let the energy in the universe say what's going to happen, and give your best shot. And another part of it from a hospitality perspective is, and I learned this from a guy named Steven Eckler. I think you might know Steve. He was the opening general manager at the Harrison, which was my first executive chef job.
Right.
And he said, he was talking about what it takes to be a manager of a restaurant. And he said, you have to be able to look somebody dead in the face and say, I'm sorry. You have to say, you know what? I fucked up and I'm sorry.
Right.
If you can't do that, then you can't be real, and people are they're gonna feel that right away, and there's nothing less hospitable than that.
Right.
And so it's basically, we already apologize before people walk in the door, because the restaurant's it's called the Little Owl. It's not the Big Owl,
yeah,
right?
Right?
It's tiny. And so, if this is something that, if this is what you're okay with, then, we want to do the best we can to make this a great experience. And it's a common goal throughout the staff. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, and it's been an enormous success. I as someone who's been eating in the city my whole life, I've always said kind of like the hallmark of greatness is the consistency of quality over time. So you got 14 years of delivering, which is it's just it's great in New York City. I mean, it's just great. So, obviously people are showing up there because you're making great food. You're just making just delicious, consistently delicious food. So that's awesome. What made you, Joey, decide at this point to take the time to pen a cookbook?
Well, I always wanted to. I guess, I was on Martha Stewart's show once, and she told me, she said, where's your cookbook? So I had been cooking for her, off and on in restaurants that I've been working at for about 5 or 6 years, and then I got to get on her show, and we had this really great energy, but she said, why don't you have a cookbook? And I couldn't answer that question.
Right.
And so that's when I started it, and it was a good 8-9 year journey to, find somebody to be the writer with me and come up with a proposal and actually learn the business. I really just feel like I had just learned how to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, how am I going to learn the book business and do this right and create a proposal which a publisher would want to get behind. And so Teresa Gambacorta, who's been my maitre d' at the Little Owl for years, she'd see me and she's like, how's it going with your cookbook? And it was never front burner, It was like always, oh, it's on the back burner. And she said, that's it, I'm writing it. And so she wrote a proposal.
Nice. And
we sent it out. I got my cookbook agent actually lives next door on Grove Street.
Sweet.
Yeah, and so those two women really moved this project along. The process for writing the book was kind of like this. Like Teresa would show up with a tape recorder,
right,
and she'd say, all right, let's start talking about stuff. And so that's how she was able to capture my voice, but in a very creative way. And a cookbook agent, Janice Dunno, she really just drove the bus. I mean, I've been cooking for her for so long, and it was like getting back to the question from Martha Stewart is, why don't you have a cookbook?
Right.
And I was like, I couldn't answer it, so now I'm like, now I have to answer this question. Right. I do have a cookbook.
Right, exactly.
And the help, I got so much help. I did something a little bit backwards. I reached out to a friend of mine, Karen Danick, who used to be with Condé Nast. And I was talking to her about food stylists, and she connected me with a guy named Paul Grimes. So I sat with Paul, and I was chatting with him about photographers for the book. And he listed 3 people that I basically said, who do you want to work for? Because, that's a huge part is the food styling. Mm-hmm. And he listed 3 people, and then one of those people actually had done the cookbooks for Donna Hay. And I've always loved Donna Hay cookbooks. I was like, oh, I want to talk to this guy. And I thought I'll never be able to afford him. Because, first cookbook, I didn't get a huge advance to get this thing made. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of this book is kind of like the restaurant, where it's pretty much handmade and built on relationships. So the photographer's name's Con Poulos, and we met, and he was like, tell me the story, let me look at a manuscript, and he didn't take the job right away. We met 3 or 4 times, and he's either in Italy or in Australia or Los Angeles. He's not often in New York. But the timing just really worked out where we could connect, and I could really tell him what this book is about. And so he was captured by the basis of the book and how it fits in with the restaurant itself, and the vibe with Teresa, who's the writer, who really understands my voice and who I am as a chef and as a person.
Right.
And so thanks to Paul and everyone that was involved in this who led the way, I mean, the universe helped so much with this, Rob, that, I was in charge of the prop styling. I had to get all these plates. So I asked the staff to bring in cool things, and then I've been buying things from Fish's Eddy, quirky little things for the restaurants for years since we opened. So I asked them if they would help, and they were extremely generous and gave me a bunch of stuff. So on the first day of our photo shoot, Chronicle designers and my editors show up. We did it at the venue on Greenwich Avenue because it's such great light there. Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, let's see the silverware. And I'm like, and I showed her to all the silverware that I used at the restaurant. She was like, this isn't going to work. And they were pretty upset. And I was getting like a really, really weird vibe from them. Like, all right, this is an inauspicious start. So I called Mimi Sheridan, believe it or not, who lives around the corner from the venue. And I said, Mimi, you're not going to believe this, but I need some help. And she's like, what can I do for you? And she's, very strict about things. I said, I messed up. I'm doing a photo shoot and for my book, and I need some props. Can I come over to your house? And so she said, come on over. So we went over, and I came back with all this beautiful stuff. And the editor was like, where did you get this stuff such last minute? And I told her, I said, Mimi Sheridan helped. And then she's like, oh, my God, when you bring it back, can we go over with you? Like, Mimi, I was like, no, you can't come back. No. I didn't want to. I said, maybe I'll convince Mimi to come over here when we're having lunch or something. But I said, no, I don't feel comfortable bringing you to her house.
Right, that's great.
But yeah, things like that, and Calvin across the street. Like Calvin, I'd be honored if you would write this forward for me. And he's so witty and so funny. Like he knows this restaurant more than a lot of people, from the staff, the relationships that he's built with the staff here, and even me, like intimidating me as what I thought was a grouchy old neighbor who was going to be a pain in my ass trying to get this thing open, because he would just scowl at me while I was building the joint. And he was like, well, what kind of restaurant's it going to be? And, I didn't know who he was at the time.
Right.
And then we finally got it open, and I guess he was traveling back and forth from Nova Scotia. And so he was in the restaurant early on, and he was complimentary and appreciative of all the efforts, and he became a great customer.
Yeah.
So relationships like that really are how this book got built.
Yeah, that's.
These are relationships that I feel like when you wake up in the morning and you walk outside, you start to build relationships. So I try and keep that in mind when I'm communicating with people, whether it be guests or my staff, to approach things with empathy and things that I learned from my grandmother and how she was treated with such respect so many years ago. I kind of wanted that, and so I would emulate her behavior, and be helpful and thoughtful, and do the best I can.
It's a good story, and it's one I can relate to because. I went to cooking school, and then I did it while I was working. So I did it at night because I was working during the day, and but I still, in the division of labor in my household, I was responsible for cooking the meals for the family, which I was happy to do. And my wife would be like, "Hey, you should write a cookbook." And so I did what any dutiful husband would do. Like 11 years later, you know what I mean? It was for me, it was all women. I had lunch one day with Nilu Motammed, who at the time was over also Condé Nast, and she said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "I don't know. I've been writing this cookbook. It's kind of been sitting in the drawer for a couple of years." And she looked at me and she said, "Schmuck, get it published already." And then another friend introduces me to a literary agent who was representing Mark Bittman, and she said, "I'll take this on." And then, of course, the editor is a woman, and my photographer is a woman. So and my influence, I got to say, Joey, is also. Bless my parents, but neither one of them. I mean, my mother was a teacher, guidance counselor for 30 years. We used to say about her, nobody baked a better potato. and not an awesome cook. My father, I feel like, was born without any taste buds. So for me, it skipped a generation because my grandfather was a butcher, and my grandmother, cooked everything, and it was great. So I think maybe part of the reason I can so identify with what you've put together is because I have kind of a similar, pattern and experience.
No.
You know, um,
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Yeah. Hence the dedication page
yeah,
to the book.
yeah, I hear you. Meanwhile, I'm out on the. I was able to get out of the city. I'm here on the eastern end of Long Island, in the midst of tomato and corn season. Your book reminded me of how much I would like to cook with you one day because I have been cooking my ass off out here. I go out. I think that you can appreciate this, right? I'm surrounded by kind of farms and farm stands, and one of them puts together a box of tomatoes that are imperfect, called blems, short for blemished.
Yeah. Which farm?
Uh, it's actually one of the ones that I wouldn't even know the name. It's a farm stand, and it's across the way from the farm stand. I think his name is Pike, where your barefoot Contessa gets her ingredients. Across the way, I have a farm stand that sells this blems. So I go over the other day, and I go, "You got any of the blems?" She goes, "Yeah, there's a box right over there." It turns out to be a half a bushel. Now I don't know what that means. So when I lift up the box, what it means is I got 25, 30 pounds of tomatoes in my hand, and then I go, well, that's not really enough because they could be small, but they're not. So I count them, and my half bushel has 39 tomatoes in it. And so even though you can call them blemished, they're not selling them for whatever exorbitant price they would sell them for out here. I buy the half a bushel. It's actually $10 for that. They're perfectly good eating tomatoes. So you just start right off with that, and then I move into gazpacho land. I've made a couple of things of gazpacho already. And then I go into your marinara. And I was glad to see in your recipes, because there's always some issue about tomato sauce. I was glad to see that you had some onion in your tomato sauce, because when I made my tomato sauce, the first thing my wife does, and by the way, a professional critic, she tastes it and she goes, "Did you put any sugar in that?" And I go, like, never. I would never, ever in my life put sugar in it. I just am anti, sugar in the tomato sauce. And she goes, "'Cause that's sweet." And guess what? It was coming out of the combination of the tomatoes themselves and the fact that I sweat some onions up front with the garlic.
Absolutely, that's the move. That's the balance.
Yeah, so very, very excited about that. And are you also? How do you feel? What do you do with corn these days? I noticed you had something in there. Referencing the Mexican street corn, which I don't make just because my people don't love creamy. So what are you doing? What do you do with corn these days?
Well, when the corn arrives, I've been getting the corn from Hackettstown, New Jersey, Donaldson Farm, and we roast it in the oven.
Oh, nice.
For in the husk for about 45 minutes, and then it cools down, and then we peel it. And then we do a couple of things with it. After it's cooked, we stick it on the grill and char it.
Right.
And then cool it down again, and then we take it off the cob. And then that gets tossed with a simple mix of like a chili aioli and some lime juice and some actually use Parmesan cheese. And I just call it spicy Mexican style corn.
Nice.
And then that's been very well received. And then the other thing I use with the corn is I make a halibut dish at the restaurant, and I serve it with a corn salad that's tossed with peas and pea shoots and pesto. And I actually top the fish with a pesto aioli and broil it, which I guess lots of people do that with bluefish actually.
Right.
But it's a technique that I learned with on merluza in Spain. and it looked so beautiful. Like she would take this whole merluza. This is my ex mother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
She would take a merluza is like a cod.
Mm-hmm.
It's a smaller one. Called like a 4-pound fish, and she would smother the whole thing with like Hellman's mayonnaise right out of the jar, and then stick it in the oven. And when it came out of the oven, it looked so beautiful, and I didn't know this technique. And so I started, digging around, and it's an old school fisherman style technique with things that they keep the fish moist. So I tried it with halibut, and I was like, but I want to make an aioli. I don't want to like scoop out of the jar.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make something that's gonna have a lot of bursting, refreshing flavor, great for summer, and it worked out really, really well. So that's another thing I do with corn. I take the corn off the cob for those two things, and so I also make corn stock at the restaurant with onions, the corn, water, and some thyme and some bay leaves and some peppercorns, and a little bouquet garni. Just make a nice broth, and then I can use that broth for a corn soup. I can use that broth for a corn risotto. And really build flavors that way.
Yeah, that's actually kind of ingenious. I had never really thought of that. I'm one of those guys that takes the back of the knife and scrapes down the corn milk because I think that you want to get that kind of creaminess and sweetness out of the corn. But I love that you make a stock out of the cobs.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I dig that. I have to say that I like the technique very much also because I was telling a friend who asked me how I make corn. I gave him like 5 different ways that you could make corn. One of them was not the one that you just mentioned. You'd actually leave it in the husk, and you put it in the oven for 45 minutes and roast it in there as a start point.
Right. It roasts in the husk. It actually, it pretty much steams.
Right.
Inside that husk, and you're not washing away any flavor. Like some people will boil their corn.
Right.
And I think that it makes the water taste really, really great.
Nice.
But then people throw the water out.
Right. Exactly. Although that water would actually be okay if you were going to put the cobs in there and make a stock. You also, by the way, are a big fisherman, are you not?
I love going fishing. Yeah, I've been fishing for many years.
Where do you fish?
All the way up and down. As far north of the Nantucket Shoals, down to the farthest south I've been this year has been Cape May.
Well, and what do you?
Some of the best fishing I've ever experienced was around Block Island. Just the best.
That's
fluke.
Right.
Fluke, mackerel, black sea bass, striped bass. Go out. I get porgies out there. I get tautog out there, which is one of my favorite fish. Just really so many. And then in Nantucket Shoals, though, it's where you get the giant fluke.
I like it. I like it raw. I mean, do you sometimes just serve yourself some like crudo, sashimi, ceviche right there on board?
No, well, I don't really eat it on board. I like to actually bleed the fish.
Okay.
I like the fish to travel through rigor mortis before I actually cook it or do anything with it. And so, but yeah, one of my favorite things to do with the fluke is called a. Why am I spacing on the name of this now? Hold on a second.
All right.
It's not furikake. It sounds like that.
Right.
Hirami. I'm spacing on the name, Rob. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. It might be furikake, no?
No, furikake is a seasoning, but it sounds like that.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, because you're right.
Yeah,
Harame is
like,
the actual fluke.
Right. Oh, it's killing me, but it's going to come to me. What's really, really, really thin slices.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll make a ponzu sauce with soy and the yuzu juice.
Right.
And chives
and
jalapeno. And that's it.
Nice.
And it's like the best thing in the world. It's slicing the fish really, really thin is a big part of that, because it's that silky texture of that fluke.
Yeah.
Which I really love, and I prefer that over a ceviche. I'm really a big fan of ceviche. How the fish reacts with the acid and the lime juice doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah. What about though? That said, I think when it, I think when it comes to raw, and it's all good, whether it's a clam or an oyster or I'm thinking scallop, because one of the most kind of amazing experiences I ever had was when I first started. I was up in Maine, and there's a place in Portland called Jay's Oyster Bar. It's really kind of like a I don't know. It's such a weird place because you get such an interesting mix of local and tourist and whatever. But they were serving scallops that they served them raw. And I remember the first bite that I had of the scallop, and the first thing that happens is you taste sweet,
yeah,
and like essence of the sea, and the next thing that happened is the scallop actually melted in my mouth. I was so blown away that to this day, I still crave raw scallops.
Well, see, we could talk about eating raw scallops all day long, and we might actually gross some people off because they have never had an opportunity to experience a scallop that hasn't been preserved. And, preserving a scallop is just what destroys it. It changes it so much to the point where it's hard to enjoy it, in my opinion. It's hard to get a good sear on it. Anytime anything you cook on it, it just pisses all of its liquid out, all that preserving stuff, and it's actually a shame. When you're gonna go find a fresh diver scallop or day boat scallop, that experience is life changing for sure.
Yeah, it was for me.
I like the scallops sometimes to get them out of Cape May, actually, even Barnegat Light, New Jersey. But yeah, the Maine sea scallops are just out of this world.
One more seafood thing before I ask you about veg sourcing. I'm always happy, of course, eating an oyster and a clam. But one of the things that I like to do is take my little necks and put them on the hot. I'm a charcoal guy. I'm not a gas grill guy. So I put my little necks right there on the right on the grill until the lid goes on, and then until they open up. Carefully take them out to preserve the liquor, and suck them down that way. And 99 times out of 100, people will say to me, "I need the recipe." You know what I mean? It's like, okay.
That's why. That's one of the reasons why my business partner Mike Price and I opened the restaurant and called it the Clam.
Yep.
It's like a chef's dream. It's like it's low in fat, it's high in flavor. It cooks fast. You don't have to do anything to it to make it taste delicious, right? It's just like a dreamboat of an ingredient. One of the tastiest way that I had clams was up in Rhode Island. I was with Jimmy Bradley, and we picked up a bunch of little necks, and he same thing. He does them on the grill. What's important is to have an empty pot with a lid right next to it, so that, as you said, you can, once they pop open, put them in there. But what he did before he put them on the grill, Rob, was he took a bunch of fresh bay leaves and cracked them up with his hands, and tons of fresh black pepper. So it was black pepper and bay leaves, and he grilled these clams, and we take them off and stick them in the pot and keep the lid on while we're waiting for the others to open. And then just eat that with buttered baguette, and it was one of the tastiest clam dishes I've ever had.
Yeah, now tell me something, just because I want to do this. The bay leaves and the pepper went where exactly? In the pot or
on the raw clams before they go on the grill.
Gotcha.
Right, a little bit of olive oil to help everything stick.
Yep.
So you got your raw in the shell live clams. Pour some olive oil, not too much, just to get the ingredients to stick onto the shell.
Yep.
as these ingredients are on the shell, a little bit gets in, and as you mix it, there's some residue that goes into the pot. But the flavor of the bay leaves and the smoke and the pepper, with these like fresh, beautiful Rhode Island clams, it was one of those things where it's like these three ingredients they work together.
Yeah, and that is my dream come true. Most taste fused ingredients, least effort. That is. And by the way, I should point out, and you might recall this, but the very first review of the clam was written by yours truly in the Huffington Post. And how is he? Is that open for business as well?
Yes, the clam was actually the first of the restaurants that we reopened in April. We have a great relationship with Eric Tevero, who runs Early Morning Seafood, and we teamed up to get some good pricing on some pre-portioned fish. We opened up a community fish market and inside the clam space, and we were on a good run. There was the neighborhood really responded to it, and they were using us, and then tragedy happened with Floyd. Losing a friend like that was very eye-opening early on in this thing, and we said, you know what, we're not going to do it. We're going to let this thing cool down. So we stopped. We closed up shop and we hunkered down. We would meet, in the city every once in a while and try and figure out what's going on. And we could sit here and talk about it all day. We could flip a coin. There's no crystal ball that anyone has. So let's just try and take care of our employees as best we can. And when we can reopen and feel good about it, just give it our best shot. And so when things cooled out a little bit and that curve got flattened down, we reopened the clam first as a community fish market, and then for takeout, and then for the outside seating.
I don't want to be too controversial, but I love the concept here. I'm getting killer corn and tomatoes out here on the eastern end of Long Island, but let's face it, New Jersey supplies some good corn and tomatoes as well. Do you have a preference?
New Jersey corn.
Interesting. What do you get? That yellow and white over there? That silvery, whatever you call that stuff?
That's more southern Jersey, like Cape May, around there. Great blueberries down there too. But the corn I'm getting is from Hackett's. It's actually a high elevation farm, about 45 minutes. About 45 minutes from Manhattan. And I love their corn. It's full, it's plump. It's the same product every year. It's sweet. I get a little bit of a chalky taste from the Long Island corn that I don't like so much. Whereas I find that I don't get that chalky taste so much from Jersey corn.
Got you, and I'm disappointed. Okay, now, and what do you do with what's the easiest thing to do? I mean, other than just eating them straight out of the little container, you want to do something lovely for dessert using blueberries. What's your thing? What would you do with blueberries to make a fabulous little dessert?
Well, I love a blueberry cobbler.
And how? What do you do for the cobbler? What's the preparation method?
It's all in a cast iron skillet. I start at a cast iron skillet. You have to clean everything. When you get your blueberries, you should wash them. What I do is I have a large container that the blueberries go in, full of cold water, and I scoop them up from the ones that float, and scoop them up, and then put them into a cast iron skillet with a little bit of butter and a little bit of agave syrup, and I'd make a little slurry with some cornstarch and some white wine, and that comes to a boil, and then it gets turned off. On top of that is the streusel dough, and for blueberries, I like to put in oatmeal. So it's one of the simplest recipes for streusel dough is one part all-purpose flour, 1 part almond flour, 1 part butter, and 1 part sugar.
Where does the oatmeal come in?
That's when I put the oatmeal in. I make that streusel, and before I squeeze it together, I'll put some raw oatmeal in there.
Are you using? I know this is a little bit inside baseball here, but it's interesting to me. I'm a savory guy. It's rare for me to do the sweet stuff, but I did. I'm going to tell you what I made, but before I tell you what I made, I just would like to know: are you using kind of the instant oats there, or the stone ground kind of oats?
I use the instant.
Yeah, it's interesting. You are so good, because here's what happened in my place. I go over to Costco. I am, Joey, if you don't know, considered to be the Costco hoe, in that I spend an hour of every week of my life in a Costco somewhere. I mean, from New York City to Long Island to, on vacation in Maui, my first stop is over at the Costco. Anyway, so they have, last week, they're selling nectarines by the box. And a box of nectarines, I'm going to say it's like 15 nectarines. And better for me, because I love a nectarine, is that they have white nectarines, right? So,
Awesome.
Yeah, so this I love. So I buy a box, and they're sitting here for a couple of days, and the kitchen is starting to smell beautiful, but they're at the point of ripeness, to the point where tomorrow they're going to start. I just took every single one of those nectarines. And again, because I'm lazy, right, I didn't even bother peeling the mothers. I mean, I literally I sliced up the nectarines. I gave them, a hit of some fresh lemon juice, maybe some zest. There was a little bit of vanilla that went in there, and some sugar. So my nectos are ready. They go in the bottom of the baking dish, and then I put on top. I don't know if I was making a crisp or a crumble, but I did exactly what you said. I have some flour. I have cold butter that was cut up. It gets its pinch of salt, and my recipe in my own book, and I still don't know the what I made, whether it was a crumble or a crisp, calls for instant oatmeal, which I don't have. So, but I do have all this lovely, stone ground, whatever. So I said, fuck it, I'll just use that and see what happens. And what happens is, it also writes, I toasted up a couple of almonds to throw in there as well. Well, what happens is that it would be better with the with the instant oatmeal, texturally, because when you use the stone ground in this particular recipe, what you get is a certain, even though it's in the, well, it's even though it's in the oven for 40 minutes, you're getting a certain kind of not grittiness. That's not the right word. But it's not a delicate kind of. It's still good, by the way. It's just that you get a little bit more of the oaty taste. And while it would have been, while it was good, it would have been a little bit better had I had the instant. You can, like, the crumbly part of it.
Yeah, that's why I like to use the instant for that.
But my treat is in taking every available ingredient I have and finding a way to use it. I think that's common. Amongst people who cook. We don't like waste, number one. And number two, as a savory guy, I like taking, I roasted up, Joey, last night. I have these thick cut pork chops on the bone, also from Costco. I throw them on my grill over natural charcoal. I can't even begin, and I took a couple of the tomatoes and made a little of what you might call a pizzola sauce, just in case. Not that it needed it. And like, my dream today is going to be thin slices of that very pork with a little bit of a sliced avocado on some warm toasty bread, maybe a little bit of lettuce, and I can either condiment it or not. Anyway, there you go. That's what's going on here.
Delicious. I marinate my pork chops with fennel seeds. I've used fennel in so many things, and my mother says, "What, are you going to put fennel in everything?"
I love it too. I actually thought I was going to make them before, so I brined the pork chops for 2 whole days, and I realized I had some leftover garlic. So in addition to the water and the sugar and the salt, and I put in some garlic in there. I'll tell you something, man. They were juicy. They were fabulous. I was excited.
Love
Tell people before we go, my friend, when the book comes out, when they can buy it, and anything else that they should know.
Yes. Hello, people. Thank you for listening. September 8th, Big Love Cooking is available. You can pre-order it at joeycampanaro.com.
Well, that makes it easy. joeycampanaro.com to get your pre-order of Big Love Cooking. And I got to say, and I am a no-nonsense guy. I see a lot of cookbooks. I've written a cookbook. I was, and I couldn't, I'm not on a hard copy here. I'm on a PDF or whatever. But I was like, freak, man, this is so good. It made me hungry. It made me want to make pretty much every recipe that you had in there. And also, Joey, I got to be honest with you, it made me want to cook with you one day.
Let's do it. I'll come out there.
I'll tell you, I'd be happy to have you. To be honest, I am proud of being able to make entire meals that are all composed of ingredients that grew up within 5 freaking minutes of where I am. So
I love it. Sometimes I get to come out east and do some cooking in like Amagansett.
Yep.
And it's just the perfect place, especially if I can go catch the fish, and then come back and stop at a farm and what else? I mean, that's what I feel like I was born to do.
I'll give you the what else too. By the way, I am within 3 minutes, 5 minutes by bike to the Wolfer Vineyard. And while they're known for their lovely rosé, I got to tell you the truth. I popped over there the other day just to go kind of sit outside and chill, and they served a Pinot Gris, and I thought and I love Pinot Gris because I think it's beautiful with food. I was shocked at how good their Pinot Gris was. Shocked. So not only can we cook using the local ingredients, the herbs, the vegetables, the blueberries. I think the seafood, obviously, we might have to go, as far as Montauk. But anyway, yeah, that would be fun to cook one day. Thank you for spending the time with me. Thank you for your continued excellence at the Little Al in New York City. Super looking forward to the publication on September 8th of Big Love Cooking by the great Joey Campanaro.
I really appreciate it. Really appreciate talking with you today. God bless.
Same here.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, there you have it, my friends. You see why I like that guy so much. He is just bright and fun and gifted and just terrific. And that book, no kidding, get your hands on that, Big Love Cooking. That is a fine cookbook filled with delicious food that all started with his family. There you have episode 89 of All You Can Eat with my guest Joey Campanaro. I'll be back with you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. live. And you can also find any of our podcasts here, All You Can Eat, on iHeartRadio and Spotify. You need another cookbook, by the way. Don't forget Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free. That's the one I wrote. And that one's a good one, too. Until next time, my friends, remember this. Life is short. So never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man.